Ever wonder why Trump keeps changing his mind, especially regarding the Ukraine-Russia conflict? One day he wants to end the war by sitting in across the table with Putin and hammering out a deal. The next day he says, "No, I've changed my mind." Like what happened in the last few days. He was going to meet with Putin at Budapest in Hungary, and now he has changed his mind. If you go and look at yesterday's video, my conversation with Utsav Chakrabarti, he explains what could have happened which made Trump change his mind. But there is a deeper reason. And for that, we need to understand the political structure of United States. There was a movement called as Neoconservatives or Neocons that started in the 1960s, and it is believed that you have neocons on either side of the aisle, meaning in the Democratic Party as well as the Republican Party. Whenever they get to have their say, then you see a more hawkish, aggressive foreign policy. And when they are not getting their say, then it gets damped down a little bit. So this is a two-part series on neocons. This is number one. I'm going to explain to you the philosophy of neoconservatism, where it started, who started it, and so on and so forth. In the second part, you will start looking at some of the luminaries that are labeled as neocons or neoconservatives. Some of the names will surprise you, but that is the truth. We have garnered this information from doing a lot of research. There are a lot of links that you can seek help from to understand who is what and why we classified them as neocons. Nothing wrong in that. It is just a philosophy they bring to the table. Having said all that, in this part one, I have an infographic that walks us through how the neocons movement started, who were the founders, who are the torchbearers now, and what is their overall philosophy. Do like this video and also watch both parts, because you are doing Purva Paksha here, trying to understand who it is that you are dealing with in the United States. You're not dealing with Trump. You're dealing with some of these edifices that exist. For example, there is the other thing called as the progressives. What's his name? Barry Sanders group. And Elizabeth Warren and the Squad and a little bunch of riffraffs. All these people call themselves progressives. I don't know where Ro Khanna is. Sometimes he seems to be there, sometimes he seems to be not there. So there are lots of these camps, okay? But it's believed that the neocons have the most amount of influence on any presidency. So again, take a look at this infographic and watch till the very end. Here we go.
I like the treatment here. It's very relaxing and being with the nature.
The most powerful facet that I've experienced here is the power of human touch.
Neoconservatism, an overview. This is a political movement defined by its assertive foreign policy and domestic skepticism. This came out of the social engineering that was attempted in the United States in the 60s and 70s. Remember, United States was segregated. Even under Kennedy, it was segregated. It was only after Johnson came, I believe, I'm not 100% sure, that desegregation laws were passed and a conscious attempt was made to integrate the society of America, bringing blacks into the mainstream and also allowing them a lot more rights. Anyway, so this is one side that was going on. There was what is called a social engineering. On the other side, there were people who were not very happy with what was going on. That's where the neocons or neoconservatism originated, and anyone who practices this is called as a neocon. Who are the first generation, the first set of intellectuals? Irving Kristol, Daniel Bell, Norman Podhoretz, and Jean Kirkpatrick. So these people, these names and pictures, I'll reveal more about them in the part 2 of this episode. Here I'm just mentioning the names because I want to first capture the philosophy of neocons. The later generation, that is the policymakers who actually got into positions of power, Richard Pearl, Paul Wolfowitz, Elliot Abrams, and William Kristol. William Kristol is the son of Irving Kristol. The interesting thing here is the Kristols were friends, or rather I should say Bibi Netanyahu's parents were friends with the Kristols, and Bibi Netanyahu's much of his philosophy is shaped using the same neocons concepts. That's why you see him also being viewed like a warmonger, that war is the only thing that can settle things. Whereas you see some of the other prime ministers in Israel, they don't exhibit this kind of an aggressive attitude. Be that as it may. Now let's take a look at the domestic philosophy. So the neocons' domestic philosophy is rooted in the skepticism of the 60s social engineering. It critiques the unintended consequences of large welfare programs, which is what ended up happening, emphasizing cultural conservatism and equality of opportunity over outcomes. This is the exact opposite of DEI. You get it? Now, also in the 60s, the immigration into the United States up to the 1966 or 1967, it was completely limited to Caucasians. That means white people who would come from Europe, they could migrate. In fact, it is believed that Kennedy himself, being an Irish American, passed a lot of laws to allow a lot of Irish people to immigrate to United States in the early 60s, and the Irish population got boosted. You will see them even today in Boston area, in New York area, a few in the northeast areas where you see them in big numbers. They would be white, but they would be speaking with a Irish accent of English. That's how you can find out. Nothing wrong. I'm just saying that each president had a certain tilt, and I believe Obama wanted Somalis. I don't know for why. He didn't allow Kenyans, but he allowed a lot of Somalis in. And there, that's history again. So if you look at this radar chart, you can see in the 60s, there was money being spent in social engineering and also the welfare state. And this is a scale of 10. Social engineering was close to 8. Welfare state was becoming like 9. Market regulation was 7. And then out of all this, the cultural traditionalism is what the conservatives or the neocons preached, and they wanted to get up to a level of 8. And it did start there. The contrasts of domestic focus of neoconservatism against 60s liberalism emerged from showing a clear divergence on the role of state in society and culture. These people are borderline racist in my opinion, but at the same time I wouldn't use that word. Racist sounds too offensive, too strong a word, but basically they believed in a certain set of values, and if you start lifting the carpet and looking underneath, you will see the reason why now Hindu Americans are being singled out. I'm connecting that, and I'll connect that even more as we go through this episode and then this part 2 of this one, where it will be made clear to you why I'm thinking along these lines. It is affecting all of us. We need to be vigilant. We need to educate our children to show how this philosophy evolved. Because if you start understanding the philosophy, then you will be in much better position to stand up and rebut some of the fallacies of this philosophy. So they believe that a muscular foreign policy consisting of 4 different things: American primacy, moral clarity, democratic peace theory, and use of military force when necessary. In fact, one of the guys that Trump used to make fun of, he continues to make fun of, is John Bolton. And he would poke fun at him, saying that even if a $15 American property is damaged, John Bolton would immediately say, let's go to war against this country. That's how pumped up John Bolton used to get. He was a national security advisor in the first term of Trump administration. So you get the idea where the neocons philosophy comes. Again, neocons cut across party lines. There are enough number of Democrats and there are also enough number of Republicans, and they gang together sometimes to especially draft foreign policy. So what are the 4 parts again? Let's take a look at this donut chart. American primacy and unilateralism. That means America is the sole leader, superpower in the world. Then you have moral clarity and idealism. This we'll come to in just a moment, what all this means. Democratic peace theory, and the 4th one is use of military force where needed. So the 4 pillars of neoconservative foreign policy. Like I said, American primacy, a belief in a unipolar world led by the United States as the sole superpower, the willingness to act unilaterally to protect US values and interests. Let's take a step back. Today, the second number 2 in terms of power is China. Then why is the United States supporting a war against Russia? Ask yourself this question. because it is neocons who always got wet dreams about attacking Russia, because they always salivated about the natural resources that Russia has. In fact, a conscious attempt was made a couple of times during Gorbachev's time and during Yeltsin's time to try and break up Russia, and that did not succeed. And Yeltsin, when he ceded control to Putin, he said, your only and one focus should be the mother Russia. And Putin has actually been a very good successor. Yeltsin probably may not have been as successful as Putin was. Putin has understood this game perfectly, and that's what is happening right now if you understand the move. So anyway, the goal of neocons ultimately will be against China too. Right now they are focusing on Russia, and guess what? Not succeeding very much. Next, moral clarity. Viewing international relations through a lens of good versus evil. Remember, you are either for us or against us, which is what George Bush, the president, said that. And he had a big neocon with him. I mean, we'll come to that in just a moment. Clearly distinguishing between domestic allies and authoritarian adversaries. This is where they have a problem with India, because India is not kowtowing to the United States. It's actually standing up, and it is saying that you can say whatever you want. I'm going to do what is best for India. And this is something that is kind of getting stuck in their throat, that, oh my God, look at this upstart. I mean, much of the media writing in the United States today is very, very anti-India, and it's not factually correct. I'm hoping that some of you who watch this thing and look at the balanced presentation will share it amongst the skeptics, because I really think it's unfair on part of the media in the United States to go and take this kind of a hammer approach to India. It is very, very unfair. I, having lived half my life here and half my life there, I want to present a more balanced view. Democratic peace. The idea that democracies are inherently peaceful, making the active promotion of democracy abroad, including regime change, a core security strategy. In fact, today a neocon asked for the removal of Maduro as the president of Venezuela. What right does the United States have to interfere in the politics of Venezuela? Well, long list of charges that Maduro stole the election, but it was actually Hugo Chavez who's alleged to have stolen the election when he came around for the second term or third term. But Maduro may be just building on top of that. What I'm trying to say is, this is their belief that by bringing a regime change, then democratic values will be restored. Then fourth, military force. Viewing military strength as a primary tool for advancing values and neutralizing threats, often preemptively. That means being proactive. Skeptical of diplomacy with adversaries. You see how Trump is dealing with, for example, Iran. Now let's take a look at historical influence timeline of the neocons. The neocons rose during the Reagan era in the 70s and 80s. They gained prominence, influencing President Reagan administration. They advocated for a muscular anti-communist posture and a challenge to the evil empire, which was the Soviet Union, then USSR, moving beyond simple containment. And they did succeed somewhat, because you had the collapse of USSR. So in the 1990s, they became stronger. Figures like Paul Wolfowitz advocated for maintaining US primacy and preventing the rise of any global rival, laying the groundwork for future intervention. That's how they promised at the time of unification of Germany that there will be not a single country that will get added to NATO, and yet under Clinton they added many countries, and then it never stopped, which is why you have the current war between Russia and Ukraine. In the 2000s, post 9/11 and Iraq war, they found their maximum support because they were going after Saddam Hussein. This was under George Bush. 9/11 had happened. The war on terror, the doctrine of preemption, and the invasion of Iraq in 2003, to promote democracy, are all central applications of its core tenets. So this is neocons. They had their most success during that period. Now I believe that there are a few neocons in the current Trump administration as well, and they are from time to time able to succeed in making Trump see things their way. So this is part one. I'll be coming back with part two with more details on who's who in the neocons, who are the people in the Democratic Party and who are the people in the Republican Party in the next episode. Thanks for watching. Please like, share, and subscribe to our channel. Don't forget to click on the bell notifications. Namaskar.